It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. My guest is Danny McBride. I talked to him last year. He's the star of the HBO show Vice Principals. In 2006, a movie called The Foot Fist Way got into Sundance. It changed some lives. Since film school, Danny McBride had mostly been substitute teaching and working as a PA in Los Angeles. He ended up becoming a movie star. Jody Hill was editing reality shows and temping. He got to quit his office job and become a feature film director. It wasn't all smooth sailing after that. The movie didn't actually end up selling at Sundance, but it felt completely new. It was natural, hilarious, and gleefully fun and brutally dark. It ended up begetting an HBO show, Eastbound and Down, a feature film called Observe and Report, and a new career for McBride, Hill, and their friends from the North Carolina School of the Arts. They translated that success into another HBO show, Vice Principals. Its second and final season will air later this year. It's not that it didn't get renewed for more. McBride and Hill just say they wanted to tell a short, complete story. It's about two school administrators who think they're in line to become the principal of the high school. One's an arrogant bully, played by McBride. One's a kiss-up and also possibly a psychopath, played by Walton Goggins. Here they are, in confrontation, the day before a new principal gets picked. They both think they're next in line.
Listen here, Neil. Come tomorrow, there's a brand new principal in town, and his name is Neil Gamby. And those who want to be catty little well, they can kiss their jobs goodbye. That is a Gamby promise.
So confident, aren't you, Gamby? Too bad the school board's still undecided.
No, they're not. They know exactly who's going to be the principal.
Why is this job so important to you, Gamby? Is it cause you got absolutely all else going on in your life?
You wish you had my life.
A divorce loser's what you are. Look at you.
Danny McBride, it is great to have you on Bullseye. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I genuinely find Walton Goggins terrifying. Maybe it's because I just watched the first few episodes of the new show, but also I watched Justified on FX, and I guess his character on that show was supposed to get killed off after 2 episodes or something.
But he is undeniable. They couldn't kill him off. Yeah,
but he is so terrifying. Rarely do you find an actor who is not that physically imposing, who is that terrifying.
Yeah, he has a total dangerous element to him. And he's so funny too. He's always flexing these dramatic skills, but he's got a sick sense of humor about him.
So why did you and Jody Hill, who co-created this new show, Vice Principals, think that he was funny?
He just has that ability. My favorite actors are always the guys who, even in their dramatic work, there's an underlying wit to them, and I don't know, for whatever reason, just Walton's face just makes me laugh. I like when I just like seeing his smile and all those teeth, and we had a really tough time trying to figure out who would play Lee Russell. I think it's a character. I think it's probably one of the best characters we've ever written before. He's just so crazy and diabolical, and it was going to take a special actor to pull that off. We didn't really want just to get a straight comedic actor. It had to be somebody with some dramatic chops, and we were searching forever for it. Yeah, we tracked him down, and I sent him the scripts, and he was shooting Hateful Eight at the time, and he called me up. And as soon as I answered the phone, he just started talking to me like Lee Russell and saying lines from the script without any direction or anything, and we just knew he was our guy.
I was listening to an old interview. I think it was an old interview with Jody Hill on The Treatment with Elvis Mitchell. And one of the things that he talked about was what he laughs at. And the examples that he gave were Goodfellas. Mm-hmm. I can't remember. Maybe Taxi Driver was one of them.
Yeah, that's our sensibility is when people are well, what comedies do you like? I don't even really like comedies that much. I'm more influenced and inspired by these other darker, more dramatic films, and it's to me, the average comedy gets a little boring by the third act when you actually have to kind of invest in these characters if you've just been laughing at them the whole time. And so I think with something like Goodfellas, the moments of humor in that are just sublime. I think it's so funny because it's wrapped up in such darkness and violence. I love it.
There's almost no jokes in your work. There are tons of funny parts, and they're mostly comedy. but almost no jokes.
Yeah, we never approach the scripts like they're comedic. We always kind of approach them like they're dramas that have lots of funny parts in them. So we never write punchlines. We're never like trying to kind of do the normal structure that a sitcom would have with like a 1, 2, 3 sort of setup and payoff. It's always about the situation and about the character, like, just being, I guess, developed well enough that you can like see what he's thinking and see how ridiculous he is or not.
When you say you're not trying to do that, do you mean that you are actively trying not to do that?
Yeah, we do. In the writers' room, and that's been one of the hardest things when we put together these small writers' rooms to do the show. We'll get guys from other comedy shows, and they come in, and what we'll do is like the first stuff that they give us, we're always just like, that joke is reading like a joke. Get it out of there. And we so we're always stripping that stuff out constantly.
I want to play something from the Foot Fist Way, which was directed by Jody Hill, who you co-created this show with, and was the sort of entree into real-life, full-time professional show business for the both of you. And it's a movie in which you play like a sort of a strip mall taekwondo instructor who's really pathetic dude.
Yeah. To say the least.
I mean, you've played a lot of comic characters who are at their heart really, really pathetic dudes, but this was the first time, at least for most of us. This is a scene in which he is in his office, I think it is, with one of his students, and he's trying to get her to go out with him.
Oh yeah.
I know I seem like a serious martial artist, but outside of class, I like to cut loose. I like to have a good time, have a beer or two, go to a musical dance club, just kind of really get down and just kind of just be free.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's real cool. You like to party? We should party together sometime. I'll give you a call.
I don't think that's a situation.
I don't even need we don't have to even go through the weird schematics of me asking you. I already got your number and address from your registration form.
I mean, one of the things that I really like about that scene, and one of the things that makes the movie so distinct, is so you have as close as it gets to a joke in this movie, which is musical dance club, which is pretty solid piece of business. I got no complaints about musical dance club. But it goes immediately, and this is the hero of the movie, such as it is. It goes immediately to basically him threatening to stalk her.
Yeah, like he already has all of her info. When we shot that scene, we made that movie for, I think we shot it for like less than $70,000. We did the whole movie in 14 days, and I remember that scene when what we had written on the page was like, nothing. Musical dance clubs was not in there. And Jody just set the camera up and was just like, just pick her up. Let's see what happens, And it was, that whole scene was all improv, and it just got so creepy in there. And, we obviously had never done anything before. So that the actress Colette Wolfe that was in there, she didn't know who we were, and she wasn't aware of what the tone of this movie was. And you could just feel it in the room getting so uncomfortable as it just kept going on. But a lot of times Jody and I will just try to, in these scenes, just like, because we do have such a strange sense of humor, I guess. Like, I'll just always be performing for him when I'm doing stuff like that, and just trying to like get him to laugh off camera. And so a lot of that stuff is really me just saying that to Jody.
I mean, like, if you're performing for him, you're going to go to some really brutal places.
Yeah, exactly. We'll write stuff, and me and him will both laugh at it. And then when we will start performing it, it's like, whoa, this is a lot darker than I ever imagined that this would come off. And there's a moment in the second episode of Vice Principals where it's like, it's the whole reason why we made the show, that there's just this scene at the principal's house where things get really, really out of hand. And I can remember that, like, reading it, it always made us laugh. And as soon as we saw it being, it's like, whoa, this is dark. This is crazy.
It is. I've seen that scene, and it is terrifying to watch. Because you really feel in a scene like that, and there were scenes like that in Eastbound and Down as well, you're going along with, frankly, a big part of it is how charming you are, Danny. It's like, you're charmed by this character, even though he's making awful choices and doing terrible things because, he's trying to do something and you can see what he's trying to do, even if he's doing a bad job. That's how drama works. Yeah. You identify with the protagonist almost no matter what.
Yep.
But then there are moments where you realize that you are going to have to deal with the weight of those choices.
Exactly. And that's what I think is, in some regards, like Vice Principals is sort of like an answer to like the formulaic, like ridiculous sort of, high concept comedy. It's like if that were just sort of a studio comedy, it would be like, oh, they do a series of things where they make her look bad at her job and this and that. And so it's just sort of like our take of like, this isn't going to be like a story that goes down easy. It's going to go into some really weird, dark places that hopefully people aren't expecting. And, we wrote the whole entire series before we shot any of it. And so we wrote the whole, beginning, middle, and end, 18 episodes. And we just delivered to HBO the last episode of the whole series. And it's like I'm sitting here like looking at where this goes and I'm seeing how they're marketing it in the beginning. It's like no one's going to have a clue where this thing, where it ends up.
It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. I'm talking to Danny McBride. He co-created and starred in the HBO show Eastbound and Down. His newest series on HBO is Vice Principals. There's a moment in Eastbound and Down where two of the characters, including your character, open a baked potato bar kiosk, if I remember correctly,
yes,
in a mall. And I remember, they just say Vixens to each other.
Yeah.
Meaning, your chives and whatnot. And I remember thinking, like, on the one hand, this is like the jokiest thing that's ever happened on this show.
Yeah.
Like, this is really stretching. But, like, when you have 40 hours or whatever it was at that point, 20 hours, I guess.
You just go with it.
Yeah, it's earned. Like, you can let the characters just go fixins to each other.
That was all Jody. We were just doing that scene, and Jody just, like, at one point was just like, Steve, say fixins. It just turned into something that it was making us laugh so hard, we just kept repeating it to each other. And, we improv'd a ton on Foot Fist Way and on Eastbound. I mean, the scripts were that we'd make sure the stories were there and the character was there, but we would always just rip it and riff. And it's strange because I think in comedies now that is sort of the norm, is to just like set the cameras up and let everyone riff. And so much so that I feel like now I see it a mile away when I watch movies. I can tell like, oh, this is a run because no one else is talking, just this person, and they're not talking about anything that's moving the story along. So with Vice Principals, I think Jody and I were both of the mindset of like, we should not do that with this. We should figure out how to just get it there on the page. And I mean, obviously you can reword things, but I think the idea of going on runs and stuff, it seemed like we wanted to try something different this time.
What's it like to live in the world with the kind of baggage and expectations of people's relationship with the characters that you've played on their TV or in movies or whatever?
It's something that's new for me. I'm shooting a movie right now down in Australia, and it's been crazy to walk around there and be people coming up to me all the time in another country about Kenny Powers. And, it's definitely cool. The fact that like we've worked so hard on that, the idea that it does resonate with people is awesome. But I think in the same sense, I see it even with Vice Principals, is like your work is always now going to be like what you're almost competing with. It's like it's something I guess I'm still figuring out. But I like it. I like the idea that we've created a character that has resonated with people enough that they think I am him.
I think especially in comedy, I think of Dave Chappelle a lot around this, a guy who quit his job because he did not want to live with other people's interpretations and misinterpretations of what he was trying to bring into the world. Mm-hmm. And he carried an incredible challenge that you and I don't have to face, which is that he was presumed to be representing his race, just by the way American culture works, and he was very aware of that. I wonder if, especially as somebody who didn't initially aspire to be a performer, who just kind of ended up being a performer, and you're great at it, if you feel that kind of like weird thing, especially around stuff like Kenny Powers, where, there is this world of people who just like think it's cool that Kenny Powers is a, I'll use the word jerk.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's, I completely understand that, but I also feel like, in a weird way, I almost feel like we don't think about, I feel like if I spend too much time thinking about how everything is interpreted, it almost will slow you down just kind of creating this stuff. It's, Wayne Kramer, who did the music for Eastbound and Down from the MC5, remember he told us when Eastbound first came out, he's like, don't read the good reviews or the bad reviews. If you put weight in the good reviews, you have to put weight on the bad ones. And so that was like really struck with me, the idea that like you're probably better off maybe not even trying to educate yourself on how exactly everything's being perceived, because then it could change how you do things. You could get too in your head about the process, and it might be a little easier just to keep it pure and just kind of focus on what you want to do and let history just look back on it and figure out what it all was, if it was all a grand mess or if it was all I think that the idea of just keeping working and not trying to focus too much on how everything's being interpreted or what people, because you don't really have any control over how people are going to respond to things, I mean,
That seems hard to me. I have a hard time with that with my work, and I'm not a movie star.
the very first studio movie I ever did, Hot Rod, and me and Bill Hader were shooting Tropic Thunder when that came out, and so I had no experience with like when a movie comes out, like reviews on the internet or people on message boards, and me and him were kind of sitting together, like going through and like reading what people were saying about Hot Rod, and it was like, this is crazy that like how much people are like thrashing everybody and thrashing this, and it quickly got into my head. I'm like, if I'm going to exist, I have to now stop going to all the websites I used to go to, and I have to just like protect myself in a way where I'm not listening to what the world is saying about what I'm doing, and where I'm just focusing on the work. On Vice Principals, it was important for us to get that 18-episode order and complete the whole series before anybody saw it, because we didn't want to be influenced by what the audience takes from this. We really wanted to create a pure vision and then let people, interpret it the way they want.
Hot Rod's super funny, by the way.
Very funny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a super funny movie. I mean, there's some weird, I understand why people, I get why people wouldn't be into it. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but that's a super funny movie. Was one of the things that you didn't see when you were, 23 years old and just out of film school, in the world of Hollywood movies, a representation that felt true to you of, for lack of a better word, Southernness?
Yeah, it's, I don't think we had like some new message about, well, this is what the South is like. But I think that there's like, when I would see people setting things in the South for comedic purposes, I feel like they would, I don't know, they would like blow it up and find jokes in just the Billy Bob type, with, wearing overalls and having a, hey, dangling out of your mouth or something. And to me, the South that I lived in was funnier on a way more subtle level, and there was a little bit more nuance in it, whether it's the idea of a Taekwondo studio in a shopping mall, in a strip mall. That is the South that I grew up in, and that made me laugh.
Were you glad that you've been able to do this?
I am, and like when I've tried to write stories that take place in L.A. or, take place outside of the South, and it just does, there's a level of, there's a level of understanding that I feel like it doesn't seem authentic. It's I don't know. There's something about setting these stories in the South that I think that Jody and myself, we just we understand it on a simpler level, that I think we're able to pull comedy from it easier. There's
something really thrilling about seeing a representation of your experience. I mean, like, I remember I'm from San Francisco, like, Full House had nothing to do with San Francisco. Like,
it doesn't?
Nothing to do with San Francisco, but literally just the establishing shots in the credit sequence were thrilling to me as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, the most exciting thing in the world, like, oh, that is something that I know.
Yeah, yeah. That's, we'll do a lot of regional, like, so we'll poke out regional things a lot of times in some of our work, and I think it is for that. It's for that kid that's back in Virginia, North Carolina, and can see something that maybe only him and his friends know about because it's their area culturally, and I think that's cool to kind of, call out your neck of the woods, and for people there, it pops for them.
I want to play a clip from Eastbound and Down. So Kenny Powers, who's played by my guest, Danny McBride, has come home. I don't know if you know this, Danny, but you can't go home again.
No, you can never go home again.
And he's brought presents for his nieces and nephews because he wants his brother to love him.
Hey! Yo, Dustin! What's up? I came to buy back your forgiveness.
What are you doing giving my kid an assault rifle?
Hey, man, Dustin Jr. is a well-adjusted kid. He's responsible enough to own an assault rifle. Notice I didn't get Wayne one. I'm thinking this thing through.
I mean, it seems to me like these characters that you've played in Eastbound and Down, in Foot Fist Way, now in Vice Principals, when you say that it's about ego, like the thing that ego is preventing them from doing is connecting with other people.
100%. Yep. And I think that's kind of like what we, I guess the more we write, the more we see what themes are important to us and what themes like exploring. But yeah, I guess it is about like ultimately these people that just have a different way of looking at the world and looking at themselves, and how that limits them or from having connections with people, how it limits their love life, how it limits their connections to their family. And, and I think in a weird way, it's almost like they're grasping on to these like old concepts of like male masculinity to such an extreme that it's like it doesn't allow you to function like a human being.
Did you ever feel anything like the kind of loneliness that these guys feel? There's so much loneliness.
There's a lot of loneliness. I don't know what that is either. I think it's just like we're just, Jody and I both went to art school together. Like we're these guys who were born in the South, raised there. We're not like the kind of characters that we write about at all. So I'm not sure why we're so obsessed with them. But like, neither of us ever played sports. We were not, we weren't even baseball fans. And I don't know what it is, if it's just like the weird art school kid in us that just likes to sort of like find this bittersweetness. But I don't know. That's what, when I watch stories, I want to be moved by them. I want to feel that. And I guess loneliness is, I don't know, it's just something that we always ends up kind of finding its way into our work. And, which is surprising because I don't really feel lonely much, but maybe this is my way of exploring it.
Well, I mean, I thought it was interesting that you described these characters. I think it's obvious that these characters have huge egos, right? But you worked with Kenny Powers for whatever it was, 6 or 7 years, and you worked on Foot Fist Way when it was like all of your money all put together plus credit cards, and it was the most important thing in the world. And you made this 18 episode, 2-season super show all at once. So you've spent a lot of time with these characters, and you describe them as having a different way of looking at the world, and that ultimately is what alienates them from other people.
I think it is. With like I said, with Kenny Powers, he was driven by ego, and I really feel like Neil Gamby's different than Kenny in the sense that he ultimately is just misguided. The way he looks at he feels like he's followed the rules and he's done what he was supposed to do to have like a standard of living that he believes he deserves, and none of that stuff has come true for him. He has a failed marriage, he has a strained relationship with his daughter, and then being passed over for this job is sort of like the final straw for him. And so once again, it's a guy who has a vision of where life should be, and it hasn't kind of worked out that way. And so it, the comedy, I guess, comes from how they deal with that. And I guess that it's like a truth we see in life all the time is that, you always have these ideas of how life's supposed to go. And when it doesn't go that way, I think it's just kind of almost a release to see how these crazy people deal with it.
When David Gordon Green became an indie darling, after George Washington came out. George Washington is a really beautiful little movie that got a lot of acclaim when it was released, and you guys were all like in your early mid-20s,
yeah,
right?
Yep.
Did you think that after having been the second unit director, did you think your ticket was written, like you could just move to Los Angeles and get a job?
No, I didn't. I never thought that, but weirdly, I knew that. Like, I think if you're a writer, your pursuit for to make it in Hollywood really relies on you just being able to write something that connects. If you're a director or if you're an actor, your chances of success rely on somebody else like giving you a shot, but there's nothing if you're a writer that can keep you from just writing something, and if it happens to have an effect on people, it will. So I think when I moved to LA, I knew there was going to be hard work, but I also looked around and didn't think the competition seemed that steep. I'm like looking at the movies that are in the theaters, and I'm just thinking like, man, this stuff is stuff isn't that great. I think this stuff can be beaten, and we just have to figure out how to do it.
Did you continue to believe that after you moved to LA?
I did for about a month, and then and then I got a job at the Crocodile Cafe waiting tables, and then I got a job at like the Holiday Inn in Burbank, and then I was PAing, and then my girlfriend at the time broke up with me, and then I quickly like gave up everything and moved back to Virginia.
Because one of the things about Los Angeles is that, by its geography and its, the way that it works, and then also especially if you're in the entertainment industry where it's hard to get a job and most jobs are gigs, is that it can lead to this kind of alienation where you feel like you want to move forward, but you just don't, there's no path in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, the best advice I got when I first moved to LA was this guy who'd been out here for a while. He said, look, all I can tell you is that you should just find a way to make money that doesn't make you want to kill yourself, because that's going to be ultimately whether you can stay out here or not, is if you can find a way to make a living and still at the end of the day be inspired enough to like work on what you want to work on. And that really was true. And that's what I was kind of hitting a wall with here. I was just like, I would be so tired and so depressed at the end of the day that I really wouldn't feel like coming home and like writing or working on something. And I just started thinking about scripts in a different way too. I started like seeing, I went from wanting to challenge what was out there to like all of a sudden wanting to just like emulate it because that's what would get sold. And so once I kind of saw that was happening, that's when I just thought it might be good just to go back home, to go back to the South and to figure out what I was doing and to kind of start new. And Jody had a very similar experience, and that was ultimately kind of why we did the Foot Fist Way. It's like we just needed to get out of the city and figure out what we need to do and come from a place that was a little more true to ourselves.
How do you manage a tone where you are making a character who makes awful, brutal choices and is awful to other people and is the protagonist that you're going to sit with for 2 hours in a movie or 6 or 12 or 50 hours in a television show?
That to us that's the idea behind why we write it. It's like that's what you figure out the whole entire way for us is that. It's like, how can we take a character that is going to be so unlike what our viewers are going to be, and it's going to have views that are not popular, and is going to treat people that care for him in ways that are not healthy, and how can we make an audience member get behind somebody who's so different than them? And I think that's ultimately like what all these stories are about. They're all like mathematical equations of how to get someone to root for someone that's not like them.
I think it's rare for somebody to go off to college and work as deeply and extensively with their college buddies.
Yeah.
As you have.
Yeah, which is very incestuous. It's weird. But I don't make new friends. All my friends are my friends from 18 years old. No, but it's, we had the premiere for Vice Principals last night, and I was sitting there looking at the credits, and it's like there's like 25 people that I've known since I was 18 years old that are major components of that show. And, we went to this North Carolina School of the Arts, and it was a small film school in the South outside of the big city, and we were so disconnected from, any cities where people were really making movies. It wasn't NYU. It wasn't USC. I think that it kind of like made us all feel like we were sort of on this preposterous like dream together, that there wasn't really a chance that any of us would be able to do this. So we kind of wanted to band together. And David Green, he graduated a year before us, and he came back to school when we graduated, and we shot George Washington. And I directed second unit on that, and everybody kind of just came together and worked on it. And I think seeing him do that and knowing and seeing him get a career from it and knowing that we all had a piece of it, that we all had helped do this, I think it just it had an impact on everybody. I think it made everyone just feel like if we could continue staying as a team, we would be capable of doing the weird things we wanted to do, I guess. And along the way, everyone kind of gets better at what they do. So it's like, the camera operator we went to school with, the editor, a lot of guys on the writing staff, the production designer. I mean, these are all major positions on a production, and they're all guys that we've developed relations with, for years.
There's something in the tone of Eastbound and Down and Vice Principals that I think is also represented in David Gordon Green's movies, both his, more art house movies and your Pineapple Express type movies. Mm-hmm. And it is, there's a quality that you feel like you're just kind of tuned in to something that happens to be happening. And I wonder if that's like a choice that you've made, that you feel like you don't, rather than feeling like we're watching something we'll never have a chance to see again, that we're watching something that just happens to be passing by our window.
I think there's something like beautiful and poetic about that sort of approach. I definitely think that's true. And it's the way that David even directs. A lot of times on Eastbound or Pineapple Express or, even things like George Washington, he never lets the cameras and the setup sort of get in the way of what's just happening. He really likes to sort of like set the cameras up, and then he'll sometimes just sit underneath the cameras and just sit there and just watch what's happening. And then he'll throw a little direction here or there while the cameras are rolling. But I think there's something, I don't know how to put into words really, but there's something fresh and cool about the idea of that, of just observing this, these weird things play out,
Are there moments that when you're sitting down to write it that you cross out because they feel like they cross that line into something that doesn't feel like it just happens to be happening? It
does happen. We do that a lot. I mean, we burn out our writers on these shows. I mean, it's really weird how we even write these. I mean, we never. I've never been in another television room, so I don't know how other TV shows write, but it's, it'll usually be just like 3 or 4 of us, and we never like lock an episode. It's like we're writing all of them at one time. And so if something changes in episode 6, we have to go back and like rewrite episode 3. And we do like 60, 70 drafts of these things. It's nuts. And so, there's always a lot of things that are explored or thought about. I mean, we've gotten whole drafts of scripts that are 40 drafts deep, and then we end up just ditching the whole entire thing and starting with something new because it doesn't give us the building block we need to kind of get where we want, or it jumps, our tone. It pushes the story too hard, and we have to figure out how to like bring it back.
Let's play another scene from Vice Principals with my guest, Danny McBride. So his character, Gamby, and the other vice principal, Russell, have shown up to a meeting, and they've each been told that the new principal of the school is about to be chosen, and they both think that it's going to be them.
I'm sure we all know that Mr. Wells left some large shoes to fill.
So big.
But I think we wound up with the right person. Someone with a lot of experience.
Gotta have experience, most important part.
And someone who's very likable.
It's essential to be likable.
Indeed. That's why.
Knock, knock.
Oh, here she is! Gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Dr. Belinda Brown, the new principal at North Jackson.
I am so sorry that I'm late. There's a car parked in the principal's space.
Dr. Brown was principal of several very high-achieving schools in Philadelphia.
Oh, look at you being so nice. And who's this sitting in my chair, keeping it warm for me like a gentleman?
Excuse me.
He basically just wanders off like a zombie and starts vomiting behind the school.
Like with this show, it's, this story, for all intents and purposes, like you're following the bad guys on this show. I mean, if this were a different story, Kimberly's character, Dr. Brown, I mean, she would be the protagonist. She's this lady who comes to this school and like turns things around, and there's 2 people that are trying to thwart her, and it just seemed funny to tell the story from the guys who are trying to thwart her instead of, the protagonist, the hero.
Both this show and the beginnings of Eastbound and Down are in schools.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the most disconcerting experience in the world to see the world of a school as an adult or as an outsider. And I know you were a substitute teacher for a while. And I don't mean that it's disconcerting in the sense that you're like, oh, children are awful or something. It's just that it is just a very different perspective to something that is so foundational to your identity.
It is true. It's like, when I was a sub, it definitely gave me that opportunity to kind of see the other side of the, in the teacher's lounge and kind of see that perspective. And, one thing I just always think is kind of fascinating about high school or middle school, anything, is when you're there, the stakes are so high for you. It's like there's the girl you like, there's the people you want to be friends with, there's the office you want to try to run for if it's, you want to get into that. Like, there's so many things that are so important, and everyone's trying so hard to just survive it or to get through it.
And like time stretches out
it does.
forever.
It goes forever. And then all it takes is to come back like 3 years later, 4 years later, and all those things that were important to you, all those people that like mattered and were these fixtures, they're all gone, and none of these people know who any of them were, and they all have their own things. I mean, it's like, I really do think it's like a chance to see what it would be like to just be a ghost, just to see that nobody gives a about what you did, and they all have their own things they're important about. Like, your time in the sun was there, and now it's gone, and that idea of like what's important is so fleeting. I don't know. That's why I think there is like some tragedy to high school in a way, in the fact that, it is such a short period of time that feels so very important and is so easily forgotten by everyone else around,
And then there is this other world. I remember, like, this is a real memory. Like, I remember not wanting to go to the bathroom in the teacher's bathroom. And this was a different campus. My high school had moved campuses. Like, it wasn't even the teacher's bathroom, like the actual teacher's bathroom I wasn't allowed to go into. It was a different teacher's bathroom. And I remember like feeling like fully like I was on some cocoon, like passing between worlds. You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. When I went back subbing, there was this I was already feeling very down on myself just because things hadn't turned out the way I wanted them to in Los Angeles. And I remember the first day the kids like walked into my room on the very first time I was subbing, and I instantly got this weird panic of like, once I saw like my name, Mr. McBride, on the chalkboard, and then I started talking in the way that like substitutes had talked to me when I was a kid, and I started seeing myself through their eyes. And weirdly, it became suddenly very important to like let them know that I'm not like the other teachers, that I'm actually cool, and that I'm not like the man, and I'm here, I'm on there, I'm more like them than,
But I mean, that is such a, I imagine part of why that's such a vivid moment in your life is that it was after that you went to Los Angeles. Like, you're like, I'm going to go to Los Angeles. I worked on this movie that became a thing. I'm going to go to Los Angeles and work and build this dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then you came back, and like, you're in this position where you feel like you have to explain why you're allowed to have a dream.
Why I'm back? Yeah, it's totally
not just
true.
why you're back, but like why, especially if you're back, why you're allowed to be the guy that's like, no, but I'm not just going to be a chemistry teacher.
I got bigger
even
ideas.
though I already failed. You know what I mean?
I totally get it. Yeah, I mean, completely. I mean, I can remember I would sub in the day and I would bartend at night. And, when I was in school, in high school, I was like always trying to make movies. And and so even when I just even made the move to Los Angeles, that was a big step to like friends of mine that were still back in town. So even coming back and like bartending, I remember I would like run into old people like, whoa, what, you're working here? And I always felt this need to sort of, explain that of like, okay, look, I know this doesn't look like I'm achieving what I had always said I would, but that will come. And
Did you believe that?
I did. I always thought that we would be able to. I really felt like if I just could able to stick in it, I would be able to find what I needed to do.
Did you ever feel guilty about the fact that you felt that way?
I didn't really. I feel like I didn't have anything else to really focus on, I guess. It was just, I was just kind of so focused on kind of getting to like make a movie or do it. And that's kind of an odd thing too, is just like you dream so long about like accomplishing something, and then actually when you do accomplish it, then there's this whole other level of like, well, I mean, I've always thought that like when a movie comes out, there's nothing more anticlimactic than like a movie coming out or a TV show you've worked on, because you've put all this energy into it, and you're kind of waiting for that one moment when everyone turns around and just says, good work, but it never happens. It's just like your experience with the project is the richest when you're just making it, and the fact that you get to do it. And then however it's received, you can put importance on that or not, but it's never like there's a big moment where you're like given the keys to the kingdom and then everything else is going to be good. It's like as quickly as it comes, it's just on to what's next, and so that was interesting to always like be pushing for this goal in my head, never really thinking what would happen after you were able to achieve it, and that was kind of with Foot Fist Way. We were like, we're doing it. We're making this independent film. It's getting into Sundance. And then we go to Sundance and no one buys it. It's like, oh, we did it. So we did it. We made a movie, and it was the idea that like, oh, this is going to be a much longer journey than we had anticipated. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs on this road. It's not going to be about just making one thing and then everything's set.
Do you think of yourself as an actor if you think of yourself?
I think of myself more as a writer, but that's what's funny is like, I'll see things and they'll be like, I'm a comedian, and I always think of comedians as like stand-up comics, and so that's like a title that I'm like, oh, it's funny that's how I'm perceived. I'm a comedian, but.
It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. I'm talking to Danny McBride. He co-created and stars in the HBO show Vice Principals. Something that I can't imagine about you and your work, that I have a hard time putting myself in your shoes, is that, you have this, as a performer, you've been gifted with this quality that allows you to, and, skill as well, but a quality that allows you to be this kind of inhuman monster. And still like maintain touch with humanity, like the audience can feel that there's something decent or something to love inside of that,
Yeah.
And it's like an amazing thing to have in your tool belt, and it made you a movie star. You've been in great, awesome movies that I'm sure you got paid a ton of money to be in. You know what I mean? And that's like awesome. And God bless you for it. But like at the same time, when you have a tool in your tool belt that's that powerful, it must be hard not to get subsumed by it. You know what I mean?
Maybe that's part of why I do keep my friends from college so close, and I do kind of keep up with all these people that I've known for so long. It's a way of those people know who I am, and yeah, I don't have to like live my life in a way where I'm like convincing people that I'm not this guy, and I think it just has helped with the whole experience of I don't know, being able to be myself and not sort of get lost in the idea of this persona, that is seen on screen.
It's probably fun to do it though, right?
It's a blast.
Yeah.
It really is.
I bet you can really see why people just want to be Kenny Powers.
And it's something that I don't have the courage to ever do in real life. It's like that sort of, how Kenny Powers handles situations. That's always like, that comes to me like 15 minutes after I just had the encounter with someone. I should have just said this to him or.
Maybe if like in real life confrontational situations, they'd give you one for them and then one for you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just give us a run here and we'll pick out whatever the best comeback is that you come up with.
I mean, there's been times where I've been out to a bar and someone will come up to me and they'll be like, "Oh man, I'm just like Kenny Powers," and it's just like, all right, I'm out the door. But that was a show for us about ego and about all the dangers that go along with ego and celebrity, and Kenny had to be like just the most selfish monster, and that's what that show was about. Is about this guy letting go of his ego so he can have a life at some point, and it was fun to be able to write somebody who like just is completely selfish, and what happens when you approach life that way.
What part of your career do you feel like you're most proud of?
I think the writing. I think what we've done with Vice Principals, with Eastbound. I don't know. To me, it's like movies are at a weird place right now for me. It's like I find myself going to the movies less and less, and I find myself being interested in movies less and less. I'm interested in documentaries. I don't know. There's something about movies that are losing their appeal to me a little bit.
Yeah, you're old now.
I'm old. I am. But there's something
to me too.
There's something about TV though that I feel like it's this new landscape. It's like you can I know everyone's like, oh, you can do all this cool stuff on TV, but I really do think that what's cool about TV is that you can tell a story that's not an hour and a half. And if you're a writer and you're coming up with a story, the audience, you've seen enough movies that anyone now can guess what happens in movies because all right, we're 30 minutes in. This is going to be where homeboy makes a choice to do something he's not done before, and we're 45 minutes in, it's going to blow up in his face. Everybody has seen these beats, that there's something about getting out of that structure that you can suddenly take the audience into places that they're not going to be able to see where the story's going. And I think that's what's exciting about TV.
Well, Danny McBride, thank you so much for taking all this time to come in here and talk to me. It was really great to have you on the show.
Awesome, Jesse. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Danny McBride, recorded last year. You can catch the first season of Vice Principals on HBO Go, HBO Now, whatever you know the drill. The second season debuts later this year. He's also keeping busy on other projects. He produced the new comedy movie Donald Cried, which is out now in select theaters, and he also just announced last month that he's working on a script for a reboot of Halloween, like the groundbreaking classic horror movie Halloween. After a break, Miroslav Vitchus, jazz bassist, co-founder of the groundbreaking band Weather Report, will tell us about the recording session that changed his life. It's Bullseye from MaximumFun.org and NPR.